Hello and welcome back to the 2024 Goodwood Festival of Speed. We've already covered plenty of legendary classes from the hill climb cars to the drift cars, but now it's time to talk about the next phase, endurance racing. One of my personal favorite types of racing. Is very good fun sliding around, no doubt, but endurance racing has a history behind it, a real history that you can't really replicate anywhere else. Now, we've seen plenty of incredible endurance racers in the past, but this event just takes it up to a whole nother level. You thought the 962 and the Ford GT40 was good? We're gonna get to some real fancy stuff soon, but let's start out with the GT cars. They're endurance racers, the M4, the KTM Crossbow GT2. They're just not on the same level as a Maserati, or a Porsche 962. I promise, we'll get to those later. But it was nice to see things like the MC12 GT1 in comparison to the Virgin Corsone, which is the customer spec for like rich people track days. It's nice seeing the contrast and similarities. What you're looking at now is the first ever hybrid 911, a prototype co-built by the Williams Formula One team for a one-off edition GT3 car. Real fancy stuff, and it came out in 2010. Very advanced for the time. Equally fast, if not substantially less reliable, the Lancia LC2 was a bloody fast endurance racing prototype that could just never last long enough, which is unfortunately very critical for endurance racing. Now, these cars, the Masha Simca and the Alpine A442B, did not have any endurance problems and won all of their championships and the 24 Hours of Le Mans, something that even this legendary McLaren F1 GTR Longtail couldn't manage. Maybe the most famous GTR Longtail of them all, it still couldn't win Le Mans despite its best efforts, which is ironic given the F1 wasn't supposed to race, then it won Le Mans, then they built a car to win Le Mans, and they never did. But whatever. It was proper good effort for trying, and it resulted in one of the greatest race cars ever made. But it ended up being only slightly less successful than these, which ironically enough use the same engine in the case of the V12 LMR, the much less successful M Hybrid V8, which does not have the same ring as V12 LMR. I'm just saying, BMW, that might be your problem. Now, Mercedes had quite an appearance. They were celebrating their 130th anniversary, so we got this Sauber C9, the C11, but ultimately, the Jaguar XJR9 defeated both of them, at least the XJR9 and the XJR12, so that was a bit of a showstopper. Speaking of showstoppers, the Ferrari 250 GTO, $70 million. I was standing way too close to a $70 million car. I did not feel safe at all. I thought I was going to die if I breathed on it wrong. One of the most beautiful cars I've ever seen. It's simply magical. You can't really put into words standing next to a Ferrari 250 GTO. It's legendary. What else can I say? It's absolutely legendary. And it was one of just many Ferrari endurance racers from the past, the retro past, if that makes any sense, and even the future, with the F40 LM and the 499 Modificana, which I think is how you pronounce their latest Le Mans winning hypercar / track day customer thing, similar to the Maserati MC12 Virgin Corsone, a race car that a customer could buy for a custom track day. Really weird, but hey, if you got $5 million to spare, I guess you can spend it. Audi also had a mega presence with, let's just say two completely different gull-wing doored race cars, the Audi Dakar truck and the R8C Le Mans racer, and the far more successful R8s, including the diesels and the TDIs and the R8Cs from 1999 and 2003. They even brought their hybrid diesels, like the R18 that we'll see in the next one here. This is technically the Ultra, so it's not really an e-tron yet, but they did have the e-tron as well. I just never got to see it. Really neat stuff. Cars that you never thought you would see appearing here, and yet, there they are. Porsche had an incredible performance here, mainly with the Jota, or sorry, not the Joe, the Jost team, the Jost team was celebrating their anniversary, and they had all of their Le Mans winners from the 936-77 to the TWR spec to the Porsche 956B, which is very noteworthy, by the way. We'll get to that in a second as we scroll through some of the GT2 class cars from Porsche's history, because that 956B is easily the most significant in the entire lineage, because it is the only privateer to beat Porsche in their own game. Well, that and Kremer, but that's a whole different story. These two cars, the TWR and the 956, are the only two cars out of just 5 total to win Le Mans more than once. These two chassis have won Le Mans in 83 and 84, and then 96 and 97. Really legendary cars, probably some of the most legendary cars in the entire show, if I can be perfectly honest, and seeing them side by side is pretty remarkable. I wish I could say the same about the Porsche 963, but it just had an awful showing at Le Mans this year. I can't even defend them. It was very Ferrari 2022-esque. More interestingly, though, is the Helmet TX turbine race car. The only turbine-powered vehicle to ever win a race of any kind. Not the Lotus 56, not any of the Rovers. This humble yet massively powerful jet-powered endurance racer won a few IMSA races in its day, and is easily the most successful turbine car ever built. And yes, it does have a very distinct engine note that you'll never hear anywhere else, although I do have to poke fun a little bit because, yeah, these GT cars are meant to turn at very high speed on gradual corners, so they struggled a bit on this hill climb. The SLS having to do a 3-point turn on not a particularly difficult corner, if I can be perfectly honest, and that caused a Mercedes C11 to stall out and have to get a push. Oops.
Out here, but then we're back to the prototypes.
Yeah, this is one of the later
Can you just down from the... Yes, hold on, if you do turn it.
that Ferrari, and it was a machine originally built by Ferrari, and then the instructor of that for many years, and he did a lot
That TX is just so cool sounding. It really does sound like you're at an airport, so the juxtaposition is insane. And yes, that Ferrari was the one that crashed and broke his tie rod during the actual shootout. Luckily, the 250 was not harmed. That would have been a very sad day. These cars are simply incredible, and for the halfway mark of this series, that's a pretty big statement that we are only halfway through when we already have such phenomenal machines in the past, and we're still looking towards the future.